So I am Vinny Tafiro, and I am representing the Institute for Economic Evolution this evening. That is a 501c3 charitable organization that I founded in the year 2018. And this is on my design economics framework, which is a framework to drive economic evolution, well named for the Institute. Click, there we go. So the Institute's mission is to promote theories, models, metrics, and metrics that support data and design-driven economic discourse to ensure the field evolves to ensure free and prosperous societies. We do that through research, initiatives, and outreach. Our vision is to evolve economics to cultivate rather than restrict human potential. And here's an overview of what I'll be talking about tonight. First, the impermanence of paradigms, limitations of the neoliberal paradigm. I will be introducing the design economics framework, going over the key tenets of that framework and the role of design in speculative economics, with then a call to action and questions and, of course, responses. First off, the impermanence of paradigms specifically related to economics. This quote from John Maynard Keynes, a well-known economics from the early 20th century in 1936, wrote that the ideas of economists and political philosophers, both when they are right and when they are wrong, are more powerful than is commonly understood. Indeed, the world is ruled by little else. Practical people who believe themselves to be quite exempt from intellectual influence are usually the slaves of some defunct economist. And I bring up here the Kuhn cycle in his Structure of Scientific Revolutions from 1962. You have normal science, which then drifts in the model as new things are developed, and there's a model crisis. And then eventually that model has a revolution and a paradigm change that leads to a new normal in science. I went backwards. Yeah, and so the limitations specifically of the neoliberal paradigm are the fact that the only emphasis that we put on in the current paradigm is financial capital, which requires reciprocity, fiduciary duty, and assigned value, ignoring social and environmental capital, which both have inherent value and much different values. The neoliberal paradigm really is actually both capitalism and democratic socialism. Both do not count the innate value of people and the environment. But you can recognize capitalism is supply side economics compared to demand side economics, or neoliberalism compared to the New Deal or Keynesianism 100 years ago. Deregulation versus increased policy, lower taxes, higher taxes. On the capitalist side, there's the invisible hand, and on the democratic socialism side, there is safety nets. But I would go to Rand Eisler and her kind of macroeconomic look that we're really in a competition right now between domination and partnership, that we have a patriarchal system instead of an egalitarian one. We're competitive instead of cooperative. We have to subjugate instead of cultivate, and we're extractive instead of regenerative, which really is by atomizing things instead of looking at things holistically like systems. The design economics framework that I created, this was published in the World Futures Journal in 2023, last July. And what you can see here is we're using some foresight frameworks. The foresight framework is kind of what inspired the shape of the overall diagram. And then the horizon 1, 2, and 3 models really look at like where we are today with a historical context, an iterative competitive space that allows social capital, environmental capital, and financial capital to all be considered, and then a speculative space where we look at things more speculatively about what the potential is for the future. The other part that's not so easy to recognize is how CLA works into this. And so one problem today is you're either the starving artist or you're the sellout. We love art, but we hate the artist. Well, why does that cause? First off, the economic emphasis is on production over creativity. Rewarded creatives are outliers. The worldview that created that, if you look back to Adam Smith in 1776, he wrote in The Wealth of Nations, the first chapter, that there are very agreeable and beautiful talents which command a certain sort of admiration, when monetized, are considered a sort of public prostitution. And so How can we have creatives and celebrate creativity when it's this worldview of public prostitution to sell yourself out? And the myth and metaphor behind that is creativity used to come through humans from a genius, but rather rational humanism realigns the human as the genius. So the key tenets of the design economics framework are acknowledging that social systems evolve and respond to social and environmental realities. All paradigms have a lifetime or a lifespan. That economic models must refrain from punishing creativity, and that economic literacy informs social and political discourse. A free and equitable and flourishing society requires economic literacy to avoid falling into authoritarianism. The role of design and speculative economics in this framework are as follows. And here's the framework again. And some examples of speculative economics might be science fiction, solar punk, speculative nonfiction, scenarios, experiential futures, and design futures. Design economics could be represented by ideas like donut economics, solar age economics by Hazel Henderson, partnership systems by Riane Eisler, and time use surveys by the founder of feminist economics, Marilyn Waring, in the 1980s. And then I have a call to action. Our call to action, this is from the Hewlett Foundation in 2018, who is working on a new paradigm in economics. And they said to develop a new common sense about how the economy works, the goals it should promote, and how it should be structured to serve those goals. And for Milton Friedman, the father of neoliberalism himself, only in a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are laying around. And his belief is that the basic function to develop alternatives to existing policies, keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes the politically inevitable. And that is very much how the neoliberal movement started in the 40s, but didn't take hold until Reaganomics in the 80s. So back to our Kuhn cycle, you can see we are here right now. We are in a model of crisis. And whether we fall into authoritarianism or we lift out into a transformation, that is up to us and the effort we put forward. So from here, I'll take questions and responses.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Really well done. Thank you, Vinny. Glad you were able to go through that and you had the time to do it well and give it justice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the blog article that I submitted to.
Oh, I know. I was like, it's just so nice to see all of it. Yeah, I have comments for you, so I will send the comments, but really well done.
All right. Thanks, everybody.